All right, hello, folks, and welcome to Wheelbarger's War Room. I'm here today with Jeff Nyquist and Jonny Anderson. Jeff, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, if you would, please, sir.
I wrote The Origins of the Fourth World War and other books, and I've been a columnist for WorldNet Daily, Financial Sense, and I currently do a blog at jrnyquist.com. I analyze political events and grand strategy.
Jonny?
I am a professional investigator by trade, most notably into organized crime, and I take an interest in geopolitical events and military strategy. And quite frankly, when you look at the events that play out on a daily and a weekly and a monthly basis, I can't think of a better organized criminal network than what we see. So that's what we're here to discuss.
And for those of you that don't know me, I'm Inventor Lee Wheelbarger. I was the senior technologist for the U.S. Army Dismounted Battle Space Battle Lab at Fort Benning, Georgia, the senior technical staff for CECOM, Communications and Electronics Command at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, and I'm a noted inventor. So today we are going to start out with this big news coming out of Russia. And that is the fact that Russia has now decided to add 10 divisions to their military by the end of the year. And Jeff, you had some comments about that. You want to tell us your thoughts on that 10 divisions?
Well, the 10 divisions, that's a whole army command, a new one. But given the number of mobilizations that we've been seeing, I think they're mobilizing 20 to 30 divisions, maybe 3 whole armies instead of 1. But 1 will cover the bill and everyone will say, oh, yeah, they're just mobilizing 1. I think it may be more.
I would agree with you. Jonny?
I think that, as Jeff said, given the mobilizations we've seen, and to the point, we're going to get into some of the movement of what we believe are troops across commercial airline systems across the entirety of Russia in the time span of the last 14 to 21 days. I think that's absolutely accurate. So if they're saying that they want 10 divisions, well, then that means they already have them, and that means they're going to add more. But given the buildups we've seen, you're going to need more than 10 divisions to operate all of that equipment that they've moved forward into Belarus and into Kaliningrad. So, yeah, I absolutely agree that they're going to be expanding quickly.
And with that, let's talk about the buildup of the equipment that we've seen. This is the KLW World News map of all of the military bases in Kaliningrad, Belarus, and Russia, where they are building up these troops. And we're going to show a few things here that they have been doing here pretty quickly to get you guys up to speed. We'll start in the Northwest, where they have renovated this helicopter airport up here. It is now full of Mi-35s and Mi-17s. They have a warehouse over here full of vehicles. There's over 100 vehicles in this one building here. Then they have air defense systems. They have communication systems. They have put S-400 missile launchers all along the west coast of Kaliningrad. Down here, we have their new bunker system where they are putting in nuclear warheads. They have built all of these new bunkers here that you can see. Additionally, to give you an idea of how big these bunkers are, these are tractor trailers. And so you can see just how big each one of these bunkers are. They have underground facilities that are represented by these nuclear signs. Those are the entrances and exits to those underground facilities. This airfield here that they said they were going to close down, well, they did. And then they did a $200 million restoration for it, or to it, putting in this distributed fuel system here, redoing the runway and the tarmac, and now they have started moving fighter jets in and out of this facility. When we come down to the south, they have put in another S-400 site down here with radars. Additionally, they are moving in what look like SS-27s that we are finding at a variety of different facilities all over both Belarus and Kaliningrad. They have put in more airfields and have S-400s at both the south end and the northeastern end of this airfield here in Kaliningrad. When we jump over to Belarus on the other side of the Suwalki Gap, and this is very, very important here, what's going on in this area, because a lot of people believe that they are going to try to take the Suwalki Gap. In fact, Lyshenko went on the air and said that they were going to. To the north of Belarus, northwest corner, they have a training area here. Down just 14 miles southwest of that, they have two S-400 sites just 3.4 miles from the Polish border. As we continue to move farther south, they have built fuel depots right along the border. And oh, by the way, the meeting I had the other day with my friend from the military found this fuel depot right on the border very interesting, how shall we say. Moving further south, they have additional bases that they have put in down here close to Ukraine. When we get down here to Brest, they have built another training facility with fording capabilities. And what is that for? Well, that's just to go 3.5 miles to get across the Mug River to get into Poland. And we've noticed a buildup of military bases all along the western border of Belarus. Additionally, if you make your way up into Mother Russia, well, they've got a variety of airfields up in here, and they have put in more military equipment and fighter jets and bombers than you can shake a stick at. In fact, Jeff, wasn't it your friend that said there's more aircraft at this base than what the Brits have altogether?
Yeah, it was a friend of mine.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is absolutely insane when you look at the number of fighter jets that the Russians have moved to the western side of Russia. And when you look at the fact that Russia has 11 time zones and all of these are in their most western time zone, it's pretty obvious that the Russians are building up with fighter jets, bombers, distributed fuel. We've got more fighter jets up here to the north end of this airfield. Then when we go up here towards the northwestern corner of Mother Russia and we look at the air bases up here, these bases here are filled with fighter jets. And then when we go a little farther north, the airfield up here just 17 miles away is filled with Bear bombers. And this is also the airfield that the Russians got attacked at. The Ukrainians sent in FPV drones and hit this area. In fact, KLW World News has this airfield and many others built in a 3D model so we can go in and fly through those and show you those. We'll do another episode and show you that. But here we have all the Bear bombers, and then we have all of their supersonic bombers put in here. And then their brand new supersonic bomber is also being deployed here. So you see all of these things along the west side of Russia, and they go all the way down to basically the Ukrainian border down here. And well, the United States knows that, along with NATO, and that's why they are deploying all of this surveillance equipment. So we have Brios, which are small business aircraft that are modified with radar and RF radio frequency monitoring equipment. We have an RQ-4 Global Hawk that has been flying this entire area through here. Additionally, the Swedes have been flying in here. The Brits were showing up here. This is yesterday's flight track. We're doing a replay of it. And today, they have sent a RC-135 Cobra Ball, which is an aircraft designed to track ballistic missiles and radioactive materials, and they have sent that up above the northern part of Russia in the sea up there. Jeff, we'll go with you first. What do you think of what's going on?
Well, it looks like Russians are building up for an attack on the Baltic states or the Suwalki Gap or Poland, or if they're faking, they want to try to get through the Pripyat Marsh and attack Ukraine from behind. That's how I would read it. If it wasn't for all the mobilizations that are supposedly extended out to the end of the year, I would think that they would be going with their exercise in September, would be doing their offensive. But then last week we saw President Lukashenko of Belarus, sitting down on a park bench with Vladimir Putin with a little white dog, taking questions from lady journalists, and they were a little bit too pleased with themselves and joking and laughing about when are we going to attack and maybe we won't attack, to be smug about what they are actually up to. There's two theories. One is that they're applying pressure by these moves on NATO, trying to get Trump to abandon Ukraine and Europe, and seeing if it is doable, and then waiting to see what they will do based on what the political moves of Mr. Trump are. That would be my analysis.
And isn't there some history in the buildup at the way they're doing this? I mean, they did this before they went into Ukraine. Exact same thing. Set up for a military exercise, said they were moving all the equipment in, and then when the exercise was over, they said that they were moving out, but they didn't. The only people that they sent back to the camp were injured.
They hung around. They claimed they were leaving. Their attack was a little bit delayed, I think, partly because of weather or they weren't ready. And it was the exercise, Zapad exercise they did in 2022 that led to the Ukraine war. This is Zapad 2025. Now, what this is actually more like, what we're seeing because of the length of this mobilization, it looks more like what they were doing vis-a-vis Germany in early 1941. Hitler had spies in the German general staff. He knew that Hitler had given the order to prepare an invasion of the Soviet Union. So he started mobilizing to invade German territory. And there was a race on mobilization. And all of these preparations we're seeing on the border, they're extensive, and they just didn't start even in the last 6 months. They have been preparing for a mobilization of this kind for a long time. As you and Jonny have found so many facilities, so many construction projects, this Rome wasn't built in a day.
Jonny, what are your thoughts?
2007 is, to that point, 2007 is when we estimated that started. And I do believe, didn't you say that Putin made a statement or made some kind of a speech at that point in time to start to prepare to get the infrastructure ready?
Yeah, well, he made his speech it was, I think, in Switzerland, one of those Central European things where he said there's a new sheriff in town, so to speak. We've got this BRICS alliance, and we're not necessarily going to be with the West. And there was a beginning of constructing of new arms industries in Russia. During the Chechen War, they had tested a bunch of new weapons in Chechnya, prototypes, and it looked like they were laying down the industrial foundation for mass producing those weapons in 2007, 2008. Yeah.
The fuel depots, specifically the one that you showed there, Lee, that's right on the Polish border. I mean, it's 400 or 500 meters from the Polish border, that holds 12 million gallons of diesel that we estimate. That project was started in 2007. We've gone all the way back and we've looked at satellite imagery up to then. And if you go back and you look at the projects such as the S-400 bunker and the nuclear bunker that you just showed in Kaliningrad, that project started around the same time. The moving in of ICBMs into Belarus, the project was started around that time. So everything that we've been able to ascertain, that's when everything started to move. Even their projects all the way out on the Far East on the Pacific Rim, which we'll get into later on in this week, all of that started in 2008, 2009, so right around the same time. So, but given all these buildups, the tractor trailers, you didn't even show any of those. The tractor, if you want to pull some of those up, the tractor trailer lines that are stacked up on the border of each side in Kaliningrad, all the way up into Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, on the Polish border as well, from Belarus. All these tractor trailers on the border, and the border's closed in all of these places. This is indicative of having forward-loaded their supplies, which is exactly what they did, as you said, going into Ukraine. They'd done that a year before, and they're doing the same thing here.
Yeah, and I'll show these tractor trailers here. So this is Belarus. And this is going up into Lithuania. And by the way, this is not far from where that drone was just spotted the other day. But what they've done is there are over 274 tractor trailers lined up on this road to make its way into Lithuania. And the interesting part about this is the road that goes up and meets where these tractor trailers are, well, it comes from the northern end of this training area. And this training area is being filled with both troops and helicopter launch pads or landing pads, LZs, for Mi-26s, the largest helicopter in the world. The Russians have the capability of having 5,800 troops airborne just in their Mi-26 helicopters. And there's 6 helipads at this base. There are 2 here, and then there are 4 more over here. And we're seeing this at every single one of these training areas that they're building right next to the border. And they've got so much training going on with all these moving target ranges and so on and so forth down here. They've built a new bunker in down here. They've filled all of these buildings with equipment, motor pools. There's so many people coming into this area here for announcements and training and so on and so forth. This used to all be covered in grass, and there's so much foot traffic in the area there now that it's nothing but dirt. And we're seeing this at all of these training areas. We have seen, like I said before, the S-400 sites here. They also have the RS-27 missile launcher sites here. That's what's inside of this building. We've found multiple buildings like this along the border with Poland. Additionally, they have more troops down here to the south around Brest. This is also where they brought in the train full of Chinese ammunition and brought it into the facility down here. They've got the training area just to the south. And people say, well, Lee, what troops? Well, here's all of their tents. And this is just one of their groups of tents. If you come over to this group over here, you can actually see all of the troops out in the street right in front of these temporary barracks. We've also found in Belarus, or excuse me, in Kaliningrad, another facility that, Johnny, you found the other day that was a training area that Google was so nice about hiding from us. And what did we estimate? 25,000 troops could be at that one facility?
25,000 can be there at any given time, given the housing that they've put in. Now, if you go in the nice part of the season, which would be now, all the way through to the end of fall, then they could add another 25,000 just in pop-up barracks that we've seen them do over the years.
So
but
50,000
that particular
troops
training area.
Yeah,
50,000 troops at any given time is what we estimate.
That's
that
just
particular
one.
training area, to give an idea of the size of it, it is 75 square miles in scope. That's how big that training area is. They've got bombing ranges, they've got tank training grounds, they've got amphibious training grounds, they've got all kinds of BMP training grounds, just about anything you can imagine, infantry fighting vehicle training grounds, helicopter training grounds, and it's 12 miles north of the Polish border, right at a railhead.
And Jeff, before we shut down this one map that I've got here, and I'm going to put it up for everybody to take a look at it. It's this one right here, showing all of the Forte 10 flying through the Baltics, Brio, Jake 17, which is an RC-135. That's different than the RC-135S Cobra ball that I'm going to show here in just a minute. But we've also got Brio, which is the small surveillance jet flying down here in and around Moldova, Romania, and Hungary. Do you want to give us a little bit of history in regards to Romania, Moldova, Hungary, and what we found in the area around Hungary with the troop buildup that we found down there on the border?
Yeah, well, of course, the history here is in World War II, Hungary and Romania were at odds, and Germany got them as allies by brokering a peace between them over Transylvania. But the Romanians controlled what was Bukovina and Moldova, what we call Moldova now. That was part of Romania. When the Germans were busy invading France and dealing with the British in 1940, the Russians invaded and took those territories away from Romania and formed this independent supposed Republic of Moldova, which then after World War II continued. When the Soviet Union broke up, this small independent country broke away from Moscow. And of course, to prevent that breakaway from being permanent, the Russians established a Transnistrian Republic along the Dniester River there between Ukraine and Belarusia. Ukraine and Moldova. That is where they have a number of airfields, large airfields that could accommodate troop transports. And they've got a lot of equipment stored. Our mutual friend, the late Peter Vincent Pry, was worried about how much was stored there. You've told me that a lot of that stuff is rotted away because they didn't take care of it properly. But the Russians were hoping to use this area as a base area to recover Moldova. And in the Ukraine war, one of their major drives was the drive across the south of Ukraine to take Nikolaev, then Odessa, then link up with this Transnistrian enclave where they have, I believe they have a brigade currently stationed there. And if they can get that linked up with that, then they can sort of force Moldova into a change of government and have it join the new union treaty, whatever it is they do to bring all these countries, former Soviet countries, back under Moscow. But
Now,
that's sort of the background there. And there is discussions between the Romanians and Moldovans about bringing Moldova back into Romania, which would make it NATO territory because Romania is a NATO country. But that's, again, there's Russians are busy trying to stir up ethnic trouble between Moldovans and Romanians to prevent that from happening.
Now,
I think that
go ahead.
just on this point really quickly, because I don't want to gloss over it because it was an important point. You referenced the interview that Putin and Lukashenko did the other day.
Yes.
One very important thing, Lukashenko said reclaim, and Putin said, no, let's be proper about it, return.
Right.
So they mean to get all these territories back.
Yeah, they mean to reestablish the former Soviet Union, which, of course, as Soviet persons, Lukashenko, his KGB is still the KGB in his country. We know that Putin was a lieutenant colonel of the KGB who actually was the head of the FSB. He should be a general, but he wouldn't accept that rank because he had other ambitions. These guys are part of the old, you say, well, being KGB doesn't mean you're a communist. No, it does. The KGB was the sword and shield of the Communist Party. They were the communists who carried the guns, who were the enforcers. And so the idea that he's a Christian or a conservative is completely, you're accepting disinformation here. They want to reestablish the Soviet Union. They want to oppose it. In fact, they've even called it re-Sovietization. This is why in the occupied territories they put up Lenin's statue, and it's why Putin is ongoing in a rehabilitation of Stalin, which the Communist Party of the Russian Federation have already done, but is now being officialized throughout the Russian state structures.
Now, let's talk about the fact that Lukashenko the other day during his briefing with the Security Council in Belarus actually showed a map of Russian forces moving through Transnistria. Remember we talked about that the other day?
Yes, well, in fact, he did something similar to this at the outbreak of the war. I think it was towards the end of the first week of the war in Ukraine in 2022. He pointed to the Slovakia Gap in the Baltic states and to Moldova and talked about those areas are going to be taken back too. They're next. So definitely, you will notice that the Russian invasion of Ukraine initially was a pincer movement coming north behind Kiev, with a pincer coming behind towards Moldova to sort of envelop the country. And the reason why is they were hoping to cut all of Ukraine's connections with the West, with NATO, off by these initial moves. But the problem is they didn't supply these moves adequately. They met heavier resistance than they expected. And this is where Hungary comes in. So Hungary, because of the way Romania ended up at the end of the war getting Transylvania, which the Hungarians really hate, because they believe it belongs to them. They've got this, they've been nursing this old resentment, which the Hungarian leadership has, they're members of NATO, but they really are with Putin. Maybe because Putin has promised to give them Transylvania if there's another conflict. So now they have mobilized their army, which consists of very updated, I mean, their army is more modernized than the Polish or the Romanian armies. They've positioned it on the Ukrainian border along, what was it, Johnny, 5 towns?
5 key points.
Crossing points.
Yeah, 5 key crossing points. Yeah, all the way through the Carpathian Pass right there. Yeah.
With their mechanized infantry and armor and self-propelled artillery, which is just a very quick distance from Lviv, which is the westernmost large city in Kiev, which is very difficult for the Ukrainians. Now there's a threat from Hungary, believe it or not, a NATO country could move into their territory. And of course, the Hungarian government said something really bizarre when they did this. Well, we're not really trying to take our territory back because Western Ukraine was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire before World War I. And it's almost like they were hint saying, oh, no, we're not going to do, oh, but we have a right to do that. It was a bit odd.
This is a key crossing as well, all 5 of those passes. Those are well-paved, well-maintained roads that you need to transport military vehicles down to a repair center just across the border in Romania, in Satu Mare. And this is where if you have a tank, any kind of logistics trucks, armored personnel carriers, infantry fighting vehicles, they all get taken out of theater and they have to be loaded on trucks because there's no railhead, and they have to go that way through these roads that are across just that little sliver of the Hungarian-Ukrainian border. You have to go there just to get straight down into Satu Mare. There's no other way. You can take some of the other passes through the Carpathian Mountains, but it's not even feasible. It's
yeah,
really
the mountains kind of start where almost where Hungary begins. When you move down south from Poland, you move from the north from Poland down south, and then when you get into Romania, the mountains continue into Romania, but you have a plain along Romania with these series of 2 large rivers across. And the Russians, in fact, have even, Russian leaders have verbally talked about taking out the bridges on these rivers. So that's an interesting little aside. But the Russians really, they have these eyes, and I think Hungary and Slovakia are 2 countries in the region that are really siding with Russia.
And then, was it October of last year that Lyshenko went on with his commanding general in the northwest of Belarus and said, hey, we're planning on taking the Suwalki Gap. It's only 40 miles. He had his little white dog with him. And
Yes.
they said that they were going to not only take the Suwalki Gap, but they were also going to take the northeastern part of Poland.
Yes.
Yeah, which is the thing that people have militarily been looking at, because one of the things about the Baltic states, which you show on the map there, is that the Baltic states are their NATO countries, former Soviet countries, that are in an awkward position. The bulk of the land of NATO is to the southwest. Newly joined members Finland and Sweden are across the Baltic Sea, so they're isolated. They're pinned up against the sea, right up against Russia. They don't have very strong military establishments. They can't really resist an invasion, and their supply link and a lot of their power for their electrical grid comes along that Polish border. If the Russians try to take the Suwalki Gap, which links their enclave in Kaliningrad to them, making it easier for them to support it, it at the same time cuts the Baltic states off from supply, reinforcement, and electricity, which effectively places them under siege. And you will notice with the positioning of those bomber bases in Karelia that you showed us earlier in the north of Russia, they can interdict sea traffic. And with all those fighter bases and air bases and all those S-400 sites, they can interdict any airlift into the Baltic states. So they can really, they're positioned, and they've clearly done this intentionally, to cut the Baltic states completely off.
And we have the tweets from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs last week putting out the old symbols of the old Soviet republics for each one of them, saying, look, you're just a periphery of Europe. That's not really who you are.
Yes. Yeah, and to show the crests of the Soviet republics, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, these countries were occupied in 1940 by the Soviet Union. Soviet Foreign Minister Molotov, at the time, speaking to the foreign minister, I think of Latvia, said, Hitler was a sucker to make a deal with us. We're now going to stab him in the back, and there's nothing he can do. which of course it happened the other way. Hitler stabbed them first. But this is the thinking, the cynical thinking. These are our territories. You better join us. And this is what they tell people. The Chinese do the same thing to the Australians and to the Philippines and the Japanese. You better join us. You better not be with the American, because when the day of judgment happens, you're going to be on the wrong side of history. They did this to the Baltic states in the 1940s. They're doing it now with their propaganda. And Lee, you noticed they started this intensive dehumanizing propaganda of the people of the Baltic states here, 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah. Now, the interesting part about that is, first off, they put up all these billboards and all on large buildings and all over the bus stops all around Moscow, saying that the people of Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia were subhumans and should be eradicated. And the fact that those subhumans were supporting the folks in Ukraine. So we had one of the KLW World News members who is over in the area, and that's not only going on in Moscow, but they've actually done the exact same thing up in St. Petersburg. So,
yeah, it's interesting. The persecution of minorities. Stalin knew he was going to. There was a purge of Polish Soviets because in the Bolshevik Revolution, Poland had been part of the Russian Empire, and in fact, the founder of the Russian secret police, Iron Felix Dzerzhinsky, was Polish. He was a Polish aristocrat, and his deputy Męczynski, the second head of the Soviet secret police, was Polish, a Polish aristocrat. So there were quite a few Poles in the Soviet establishment, high-level communists. Stalin purged them in 1938-39. Why? And I know some people, one guy, a KGB officer, now retired, whose father was one of these Polish, or grandfather was one of these Polish people, Polish Soviet officials. They purged them because they knew they were going to invade. And they knew that ethnically the Poles were going to be unhappy and Polish Bolsheviks were going to be unhappy. So they started purging them in advance. So this kind of propaganda and, of course, ethnic prejudice is encouraged because they know these people are not going to be loyal until they get severely purged.
Jonny, you got anything you want to add to that?
I do. And it's fascinating to sit here and to watch. I mean, those of us that understand how the propaganda game, or actually in this case, the reverse propaganda game works with the Russians, they're very good at it. If you look at the Russian and the Belarusian side of the propaganda, everything that we're sitting here discussing is everything that they accuse us of doing, right? So it's always, you see, there's a NATO buildup. They're the aggressors. They're the ones that are pushing up to our borders. They're threatening us with nuclear weapons. It's never them. It's always us.
Yeah,
same thing with the Baltic states.
Yeah, this is a principle that Stalin emphasized. I know Simona Pipko, who was a Soviet lawyer. She's Estonian. She worked with the KGB during her career as a lawyer. She went to law school in Leningrad, and she got to meet Stalin. Her whole class, Stalin came to her law school class and gave them a lecture. And these were young Soviets. This is around 1949, 1950 or so. And Stalin gave this exact lecture. People are going to accuse the Bolsheviks, are going to accuse us communists of things. You turn around and you accuse them of everything they will accuse us of. Make sure that they never get away of accusing us that the blame is all put back on them. And that is the grounds of Soviet legality. And it is the basis of their talking points, always. Whatever they're doing that's bad, they're accusing the other side of doing it. It's NATO aggression. It's NATO subversion. It's not Russian subversion or Russian aggression.
And with the Baltic states specifically, their claim, as in, watching the Russian side of things, calling this out for what it is, their propaganda game, it's the Russians that are being suppressed by the evil Baltic state members. They're the ones that are suppressing those people. So we're going to have to go in there and liberate them.
Yeah, it's racial and ethnic cleansing that supposedly, and here, all the crimes that Moscow committed against the Estonians, Latvians, and Lithuanians, how many put in camps, how many executed, how many lives destroyed, to basically suppress their national aspirations. Now they're claiming the Russians in those countries who have the biggest country on earth with 11 time zones, they are the ones that are being suppressed.
Now, with all of these troops that are moving around and all of these weapon systems that have been moving into the Baltic here, we see a lot of surveillance aircraft operating here in the Baltic and around Belarus as well. But now we actually have other surveillance aircraft, including the Cobra Ball. This one is known for tracking down nuclear warheads and watching ballistic missile launches. And it is now on its way north out of the North Sea with a couple other aircraft so it can be refueled. Now, it has already made its way up above Finland and Sweden here and is flying around up in this area. Jeff, Jonny, you guys want to give some history about what all is in this area up here and why we would be having a plane that is capable of tracking nuclear warheads and nuclear missile launches or even missile launches in this area? This is a very rare plane. And so for it to be operating up in here, there has to be something significant going on. So you guys want to go into the details of that?
I should mention that whole area, the Kola Peninsula, which is that area that juts out that belongs to Russia adjacent to Finland, is a huge military reservation. It's one of the largest concentrations of bases, naval and air, so with some of the most important assets. The Russian Northern Fleet is based up there. That is the largest section of the Russian fleet, much larger than the Pacific Fleet or the Black Sea Fleet. And it has many ballistic missile submarines, very large attack submarines. The Kursk class are practically heavy cruisers the size of submarines the size of heavy cruisers. They've got, of course, their biggest capital ship is up there, the Peter the Great. And of course, it's strategic because this is the sensitive part, the White Sea. You've got Archangel is the port in there, along with others, and you've got Murmansk up there in the north by the Arctic. This is a tremendous military reservation area, and if you're going to launch a war against the West, a huge number of forces and nuclear weapons are going to be deployed out of this area. All the maritime nuclear weapons come from here, and there's bombers, as you pointed out. There's that strategic bomber up there in Karelia, which of course can traverse the pole, because the shortest distance to the United States from there is right over the Arctic. It's not really that far. So that's why this area is important.
Just to give people an idea of some of the divisions that are up there, or some of the brigades that are up there that Jeff is talking about, I'll just name a few. Just to name a few. The 536th Separate Coastal Missile Brigade, the 29th Deep Sea Submarine Division, the 331st Radio Technical Regiment, the 144th Tactical Group, the 161st Submarine Brigade, the 531st Guards Anti-Aircraft Missile Regiment headquarters is up there. So, I mean, is not to mention all of the nuclear weapon storage that they have that's up there as well.
And this is where probably some of the S-400s, and there's probably S-500s up there that have nuclear warheads of their own for intercepting. They don't hit a missile with a missile. They use X-ray radiation warheads exo-atmospherically and neutron warheads within the atmosphere to neutralize incoming groups of warheads. So they have genuine national ballistic missile defense in Russia. It's no joke.
What you're seeing there is a Russian submarine being launched or being loaded with intercontinental ballistic missiles. That's what these hatches are back here behind the conning tower. And this is up in the exact same area that we're talking about up here with all of these other military bases. They also have nuclear warheads stored up here. And the interesting thing we found the other day is when they pull the old missiles out, they just lie them on the ground. They don't even put them inside of storage facilities or anything. They just leave them laying around.
Saves them a lot of money.
Right, absolutely. And that's been a concern that a lot of people have had for the Russians, that they haven't had the money to be able to maintain all of their nuclear warheads. That's why there are so many of their nuclear warheads in radioactive storage facilities. Now here we see Cobra Ball 29 and this refueling aircraft, which is a KC-135 the KC-135 just topped off the Cobra ball here. So because it just topped off the Cobra ball here, and by the way, this Cobra ball refilled twice. It refilled, or mid-air refueling down here after takeoff, and then just topped off here. So they're prepared for a long mission with this Cobra ball, and most likely will be refueled again before it comes back. Now, I've got a little video here. It's about 3 minutes long, and will explain this particular aircraft.
RC-135S Cobra ball is set to depart. Without further ado, let's discover more about this aircraft. A long-range ballistic missile flight surveillance Mason collection, the Boeing RC-135S Cobra ball is outfitted with specialized electro-optical equipment. The Cobra ball provides reconnaissance for treaty verification and theater ballistic missile proliferation by tracking missiles during their boost and re-entry phases and monitoring signals connected with missiles. In order to minimize sun glare for tracking cameras, the right wing and engines are generally painted black. The Joint Chiefs of Staff directed missions of national priority are flown by the RC-135S Cobra ball to gather optical and electronic data on ballistic targets. This data is designed to help arms treaty compliance verification and development of U.S. strategic defense and theater missile defense concepts. It is outfitted with an array of optical and electronic sensors, recording devices, and communications hardware. 2 pilots, 1 navigator, 3 electronic warfare officers, 2 airborne systems engineers, and 2 or more airborne mission experts are required as a minimum for a crew. The C-135 aircraft that were first modified in 1961 and used to operate out of Shemya AFB in Alaska in a 24-hour alert state are the ancestors of the present RC-135S aircraft. The RC-135S was initially used by Strategic Air Command to complete national intelligence collection tasks, and it also has taken part in Operations Enduring Freedom and Iraqi Freedom. The 55th Wing controls the Cobra ball, which is manned by air crews from the 97th Intelligence Squadron and 45th Reconnaissance Squadron at various forward deployment sites throughout the world. For RC-135.
Right now, something I just noticed here while we've got the show going on here, I'm continuing to track both the KC-135 that refueled the RC-135, but the RC-135 is dropping in altitude here rather significantly, which is not a normal deal for the RC-135 Cobra ball unless it's got something near the surface that it wants to take a look at, which means that there could be nuclear weapons on ships coming out of this area, which is the first thing that I thought about when I saw this RC-135 dropping in altitude. And then as I progressed forward in time, we had a P-8, which is designed for looking for things on the surface of the ocean. A P-8 is the replacement for the P-3 Orion. And you'll notice that this RC-135 disappears off of the radar momentarily, and then it shows back up almost over here exactly where this P-8 came back on. So here you can see this is where the P-8's track was, and then all of a sudden now we've got this RC-135 flying in almost the exact same area. Now, again, Putin just said the other day that they were talking about putting hypersonic, possibly nuclear missiles in places like Cuba, creating a Cuban Missile Crisis 2.0. Jonny or Jeff, you want to give us a little bit of history on basically the Cuban Missile Crisis and what this aircraft could possibly be doing here?
You're muted, Jeff.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. In the Cuban Missile Crisis, we had U-2 flights over Cuba, and these were the ones that sighted the Russian intermediate range ballistic missile sites going up, and realized that the Russian Foreign Minister Gromyko had lied to President Kennedy when he visited the White House the week before. This present aircraft, which does something similar, is looking for nuclear war-type moves, if it's seeing a Russian surface ship or submarine operating on the surface, that it's detecting a lot of warheads on that ship. It's coming in maybe for a closer look to see what it can determine what's on that ship.
And the RC-135 was actually designed to be able to pick up nuclear weapons. That particular Cobra Ball aircraft is designed to pick up nuclear missiles, the telemetry associated with them, and the radioactive levels in regards to nuclear warheads. So for them to be dropping in altitude here and then turning their transponder off and coming over here and flying around where a P-8 just came from, this is very, very interesting to say the least, to see this aircraft drop in altitude down to just a few thousand feet as opposed to 35,000 feet and then circle around an area where a P-8 just came from. That's kind of telling to me. I would be willing to bet that there's a surface vessel here that they're concerned about nuclear weapons being on.
Yeah, it would have to be something on the surface. It could be that we have satellites that focus on certain military bases. It could be that something left that base, and the reason they tasked this aircraft was to go find out what it was going to do, what that ship was doing.
All right, and Johnny, you got anything you want to add?
No, other than the fact that the Russians have been, and they've done it earlier this week, they have been putting more of their Borai-class submarines to sea. So we could have been up there to take a look at these boats leaving port as well.
We might mention there's been a large naval exercise in the Pacific that the Russians engaged in just before the earthquake hit Kamchatka.
Oh, and speaking of that earthquake, a wave hit. So I've done more research on the tsunami wave hitting the naval base over there. The wave that hit the docks was 15 to 17 feet high.
Okay.
So there was significant damage along the shore there for a 15 to 17 foot wave to come in over those docks. That's what that one dock there, it broke off. I mean, that was a huge dock. So they did get some damage. Whether it completely destroyed it, I doubt it. But a 15 to 17 foot wave, everything down along the shore probably isn't where it used to be.
Well, those docks are made for boomers to come up to, right? That's how big they are.
Yeah.
Yes,
huge,
there was
huge.
actually one in port at the time.
Oh, I think that picture was probably from some days ago. I would suspect they're all out on the exercise, aren't they?
That's a good point. Yeah.
No.
You're
The picture,
absolutely right.
we have a picture of it. There's a boomer there at the time that the wave hit.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, of course, the wave would have been coming from the west, and it's sheltered by a spit. So my guess is that the wave would have, a 17-foot wave would have been absorbed by the coastline. It wouldn't have reached the
I'm
dock.
talking about a 17-foot tall wave hit the docks.
How could it do that through the opening?
It goes in through the opening, goes up against the shore on the other side, and comes back.
And bounces
Well,
back.
circles
I see.
around. Yeah, I see what it does.
circles
'Cause
around.
the way that peninsula was, it
So it was
circled around.
probably,
on the
a
outside.
50-foot wave that actually hit the coast.
Right, exactly.
Right.
But what
It was. I actually saw a video of the wave hitting one of the coasts of Kamchatka. Some guy was out walking his dog and took a video of it, and it was
Oh.
bigger than 50 feet.
Yeah, that's
I would
right.
guess. Well, an 8.8 earthquake, it could be over 100 feet, a wave like that.
Right. The one you're talking about, I'm talking about at the military base, was 15
Right.
to 17
Yeah.
feet tall.
You might show people a picture of the base so they can visualize, if we could see the image of the base, if that's convenient.
Yeah. Give me a minute. I'll have it for you here.
Because the base has a very fortunate geological formation that a 100-foot wave wouldn't reach the base, except that the water would drain out of the bay and the wave would hit the opening of the bay and come rushing back in. So there'd be some slosh up. So that's probably what you're talking about, the
Yeah, so
17
the
foot
wave came up through
Lee-
here.
We can't see your screen.
Oh, yeah,
Lee.
I'm sorry. Let me, because I'm
Yeah.
sharing the other one with you. One moment, please.
Yeah.
There you go.
And of course, there's a lot of equipment sitting right on a position like that right on the shoreline. So there's going to be some damage and losses there from that.
So up here is where the other wave hit, and the wave up here was in excess of 10 to 20 meters. So
60 feet.
Yeah, that's the one that Johnny, you saw the video of. where the guy
I have it. So as soon as you show this, I'll pull it up on
Yeah,
my
Might
that's
be
the
screen.
one
interesting
where-
to see, yeah.
right where the guy was walking the dog.
He's lucky he wasn't walking too close to the shoreline,
Right,
huh?
right, absolutely.
You'll
And
see
then
it. Yeah, it's
down
crazy.
here is where the base that had the
Yeah.
wave that was 15 to 17 feet tall.
And you can
is
show
what
the
hit.
whole bay where the opening, where the water comes in and out is
Yeah,
right
so
above
here's
that.
where the
right.
water comes in and out. So it was massive coming in here.
Yeah, it would have, before a tsunami, what happens is the water gets sucked out of that bay and then it comes rushing back into the bay.
Yeah, and so they got hit over here at the base here with a 15 to 17 foot wave is what hit here. And then this pier right here, where this joint is, was snapped off and is over at about a 45-degree angle off of where it should have been. And then
You know,
over
it
here,
might have snapped when the water ran out.
yeah, that's possible too.
Yeah.
And then over here, they've got a couple boomers. And from our understanding, this is the only base on the Pacific side of Russia that is set up to handle these boomers.
They don't have
Those are-
any submarine bunkers in the Pacific.
Right.
I'm working
That's
on it.
surprising, yeah.
I'm working on it.
I know they have bunkers in Murmansk for these ships.
But this is where the wave came in
Yeah.
over there.
Yeah, that's a big bay.
Yes, it is.
And it's very protected. That boomer position is very protected against earthquakes. Look at it's got a double spit protection there.
Yeah.
That's something.
Yep. So pretty calm waters in here unless there's a storm.
Yeah, it's a
and-
great place.
So we got a lot of different stuff here, as well as this is where they just leave their. Well, that's actually an S-400 site.
Yes,
No,
there.
that's S-400 site.
you're
There's
further
the-
south. The dumping
Yeah.
ground for the missiles is to the south.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was looking for that.
And go a little bit east.
Go east. Yeah,
East. It's east. Yeah, it's southeast of there. There, you're getting closer now. South.
it's on another part of the
That's
island there.
it,
So
yeah,
yeah,
it's, you're getting close. You're almost there.
just to the north there.
Just to the north
Or-
of that. There you go.
Right? No.
No. Just
Zoom back
go
out.
further. Go further to the east. There you go. There, now
And
north.
there you
Yeah,
go.
here
Right
you
there.
go.
Right
So
there.
this is
Okay,
where they
there it is.
just leave their missiles on the ground. These are old missiles out of their nuclear submarines.
Would you say that's 3 generations of missiles lying on the ground from all the boomers over the last 70 years? 60 years?
Yeah, when you look at the amount of rust, so dark rust would be the first generation, like here, and then light rust would be the second generation, and the ones that are still white would be the third generation.
Yeah, the first generation Russian boomers were launched in the 60s, right?
Yeah,
That first one was the one that had the accident where it had to be towed
yep.
home. Yeah.
So, this is first generation. And so it's absolutely insane to think that the Russians just take their old nuclear warheads and missiles and just put them out in the open like this and leave it. And this is where, again, lots of people have said that the Russians don't have the money to continue to maintain their nuclear arsenal. If the Russians wanted to maintain their nuclear arsenal the way they're supposed to do it, it would be close to their entire GDP, because they claim that they have, I think, over 5,000 missiles. And to maintain each one of those completely rebuild one of those every 10 to 15 years would be cost prohibitive.
Cutting corners is what they do best.
Yeah. And selling off stuff that they don't think they'll ever use. So here's the Cobra ball coming back. So pretty much that was their mission, was to check out this ship or whatever it was here on the surface.
Maybe it's the whole task force.
Yeah, because they're already on their way back. So what we need to do is to pull up real quick. I have got that here, and I'll do that while you guys are talking. I wanted to talk more about the planes that are coming across the country, Johnny, you said that there was another plane that we would find very interesting that came into Kaliningrad. You want to talk
Yes.
about
Well,
that?
it didn't come into Kaliningrad. It flew
yeah.
into Moscow this morning.
Okay.
Now, you had sent me something yesterday showing a flight that it's a daily flight. SU 1008 is the flight number. Every day, this plane, it's an Aeroflot plane, every day this Airbus flies from Moscow, from SVO, which is one of their main airports, directly to Kaliningrad and then back, right? You can set your watch by it. Every single day, leaves at the same time, lands at the same time, and comes back, give or take a few minutes. Well, I found something else really interesting this morning because you said that you caught over 1,000 people, almost a couple of thousand people watching that flight.
Correct.
Go into Kaliningrad, right? Well, I think I know why. And the reason is because this morning, as I was sitting there watching the flights, I saw something that I have never seen before. And that is an aircraft with the flight company iFly. Letter I and then fly. Never heard of it, right?
Right.
Well, come to find out, this aircraft, and if you can see my screen here, this aircraft every day flies from Khabarovsk to Moscow in the SVO. Every single day at exactly the same time. You can set your watch by it. Now, this is an Airbus A330, or A330, yeah, A330, 323. This particular aircraft will carry almost 400 passengers. Now, how many aircraft does this airline have? 9. That's all they have. And they're blank. As you can see here, they don't have any markings on them whatsoever. Do you see any identifying marks on that other than the little iFly up there? No registration number, no nothing, right?
Right.
These planes are coming in every single day from the Far East. Now, to give people an idea of where Khabarovsk is, that's all the way out on the Pacific Rim, just north of Vladivostok. Now, what destinations do they fly to in Russia? Because it's only a Russian airline. They don't fly international any longer. What destinations do they fly to? Gee whiz. Lee, do you see any destinations that they fly to in there?
No.
No, I don't either. Which means that they're being contracted to carry special passengers, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Something you want to comment, Jeff?
And
Yeah, go ahead.
From where the flights originate?
Yeah, Khabarovsk, which to give people an idea, okay, this is where Khabarovsk is. It is all the way over here, right? Here's the Pacific Ocean, okay?
Which is, what is that, a 15-hour flight time?
That is just about that. It's like 12, 13 hours.
With
yeah.
a 3-hour
It's pretty
stop in Moscow?
with a 3-hour stop in Moscow, and then they jump on the other
Yeah.
plane. Yep.
Yeah. So they're moving troops from the Russian Far East to the West. That's what they must be doing.
Yes, and some of these flights that are coming in are from out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, I showed you of one of the places where they are. They're coming from a place called Anadyr, and I'll put that up on screen here in just a second, if I can find it. Now, to give people an idea of where Anadyr is, okay, there is absolutely nothing out here. There is this little town right here, and
Except
that's
there,
it.
it looks like there's a military airfield there.
There is a military airfield here, yes. Well, kind of. They've got a couple of Tu-160s out there. Yeah, supersonic bomber.
They're moving. Obviously, you probably have a brigade of some kind out there, or a company of troops.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're moving them now to Belarus or Kaliningrad.
Mm-hmm. Now, these flights that are coming from Anadyr are going nonstop to Moscow on 777s, and that's 13 time zones, by 12, 13 time zones, by the way. And then a 2-hour layover in Moscow. Same plane will then jump to Kaliningrad and then back same day. They're doing this in a day.
That's a very big plane for such a small place. They're
It is.
moving a lot of people. And there's not a lot of people there.
777s.
Yeah.
Yeah, as many flights as as the Russians have going in there. You don't need a 777 to fly from Moscow to Kaliningrad. You just don't.
But you
with
do,
many-
you may need it to fly all the way to the Far East because of the distance.
You do. Yes, you do. Or you can do it in an Airbus A330. You can do it in that. That will handle the long one because they're
There
making these
must be
runs.
troops, of course, at these bases, at these places in the Far East. They will keep a regiment or a brigade, and that's 3,000 to 6,000 people. And if they want to move those people to the NATO border, they're going to have to do this, aren't they? They're not going to walk.
Yeah. No, they're not going to walk, and you can't be sending them in there in just military aircraft. That would be too obvious, wouldn't it?
Well,
So you're not-
military
you're not gonna
aircraft
do
is
that.
busy moving equipment and supplies.
Yes.
Well, we
Yeah.
even use commercial aircraft.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
That's right.
Right.
When I was
Yeah.
in the service, I flew commercial aircraft.
And for example, and we move commercial aircraft with only military personnel on them. So, for example, if you're monitoring the HFGCS network, which is the high frequency global communication system, and you hear a United flight calling for mainsail, well, that United flight is full of military personnel. And so we've got United, Delta, and a few others. So you will actually periodically hear commercial airliners operating, U.S. commercial airliners operating on the HFGCS system. Now, the French are also licensed, one airline in France, and they talk every morning for just a few minutes. They're also licensed on 8992. But you will hear United periodically, more so than any other airline, on 11175 communicating with mainsail. And those flights are specifically going from military airfield to military airfield to move U.S. troops exclusively. There's nobody else on the plane that's not in the military except for the crew. Now, I want to jump over to this real quick. This is where Cobra Ball was coming in, and this is where Cobra Ball was doing what looked to be a bow tie maneuver here. And so if we look off the shore here, we can see these peninsulas coming up here, and then we've got the larger one over here to the right, and then out and above that is where the aircraft was flying. Well, if we come over to Ship Tracker and here in Vessel Finder, here's what we find. We find the Ajax, which is a Russian offshore tugboat. Now, the interesting thing about the Russians are their ships and submarines are so unreliable that a lot of times their fleet is shadowed by a large commercial tug like the one that you see here. Now, these other three vessels here that are in orange, this is a commercial a chemical tanker, and this is a crude oil tanker, and yet another crude oil tanker. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe this one is part of the Russian shadow fleet, and this one may be as well. Not sure what's on this one, but again, it could be a crude oil tanker, even though it's registered as a chemical tanker. And all of these are headed out of here.
We wouldn't be moving nuclear weapons on those.
No, good. Just perish the thought.
Right. Well, they could on the deck of this.
Yeah. It's
I'd like
interesting.
to talking about the Russian shadow fleet. I'd like to get into what the SVR said publicly last night.
Yes.
As I was telling Jeff, I said, that just sounds to me like, going through this, it sounds to me like they're just trying to get their excuses in first, which that's kind of what they do. It's par for the course for them. But the SVR had put this out in a press release and said that British intelligence agencies, along with NATO and Ukraine, working in conjunction with them, are preparing an environmental disaster in international waters, and they're going to frame Russia for it. They're going to cause sabotage operations on their suspicious vessels of their shadow fleet. And they're going to claim that these particular vessels, of which you just put a couple up on screen there, are substandard and they're not fit for international waters.
Well, that would be true. At least the last
It is true, yes. Yes. Rickety old things that they've got out there, yeah. They say in Let me see. The impetus for such a campaign, according to London, should give a resonant incident with one or more tankers. The plan provides for the organization of a major sabotage, the damage from which will make it possible to declare transportation of Russian oil a threat to all international shipping. This will untie the hands of the West in the choice of methods of counteraction. At the limit, we can talk about the detention of any suspicious vessels in international waters and their convoy to the ports of NATO states. The British are working on two potential causes. The first is to adjust the accident of an unwanted tanker in one of the narrow places of maritime communications, for example, in the Strait, the bottling of petroleum products, and the blocking of the fairway, according to London, will provide NATO countries with the sufficient grounds to create a precedent for the extraordinary inspection of the boats allegedly for compliance with the requirements of maritime safety and environmental standards. The execution of both terrorist attacks London intends to instruct the Ukrainian security forces to do. Their expected dirty work and inability to blind traces are considered by the British as a guarantee of their own impunity. The international investigation will lay responsibility for the disaster either on Russia or, in the worst case, in Ukraine, by analogy with the undermining of the Nord Stream. The moment for the attack in the UK intends to be selected in order to use the media effect of it to pressure the administration of Donald Trump. The goal is to force Washington to take more severe secondary actions against buyers of Russian energy sources.
Interesting.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Well, we'll find out what it really means when it all unfolds.
Yes, when it happens, yeah.
Then we'll go back and go, can we read that again? Now we understand it.
All right, so Jeff and Jonny, this has been our first episode together of War Room, or Wheelbarger's War Room, and I want to thank both of you guys for coming in here with us and doing this pilot. Do you have anything you guys want to add before we go?
I would just like to say that it's a real privilege to sit down with you two gentlemen and to go through this stuff on a daily basis. It's eye-opening, to say the least, and I sincerely hope that there are policy-making decisions that are taking place by people that can actually make a difference to the information that we present every single time we sit down. And if they do not, well, then I ask you the question, what on earth are you defending? So I hope that the work that we do continues to open some eyes and change some minds, because the war is not in 5 years, gentlemen. The war is now.
I'll second that. Jeff?
And I just say thank you for having me. And this is a great learning opportunity because we get to see the enemy, not what the enemy's saying. We pay attention to that, but we're watching what he's doing. And what he's doing is more important than what he's saying, because actions don't lie.
Absolutely. Agree 100%. All right, folks, this has been this episode of Wheelbarger's War Room. We want to thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again next time. Have a great day.